centuries, the magic of the stage has been captivating audiences of all ages. From amateur performances in rented spaces to permanent playhouses, the Little Theatre is a tradition rooted in Canadian history. Thespians on both sides of the footlights have supported and contributed to community theatre across the country, bringing the world of the stage to many Canadian towns and cities. Few can boast an amateur theatre group with such a rich and unique history as that of the coastal community of White Rock in British Columbia. Just south of Vancouver, White Rock is a picturesque city that has evolved from a sleepy cottage town into a beautiful tourist destination, renowned for its thriving arts community. The White Rock Players Club is a cornerstone of the town's history, and its members have been entertaining audiences for more than 50 years. Theirs is a heritage that began with little experience, no resources, and boundless imagination. For more than half a century, this dedicated group has epitomised the concept of community theatre, involving and welcoming anyone who wanted to participate. But it was the White Rock Players Club's founding members who set the stage for the sense of family, tradition and passion that has continued through many generations of members.
Well, this has been my second home. I've been here for 25 years, so not coming to the theatre, not doing pantomime. I just don't know what to do with my nights free. So it's almost like it's my home away from home. It's where I come to relax and be with friends. It's like, you know, it's just natural to be here.
Even when I was going to school, my parents were involved in the theatre. And, I mean, the theatre was their life. My father was a realtor. My mother didn't work. She worked up here or down in the little one on Marine Drive. But, I mean, the theatre was so completely their life that it sort of became mine.
I got brought in as, you know, it was a good place to babysit me over the Christmas season while they were in the show. So you put them in the show, too. That way you know where they are and they're underfoot.
When they were babies, you'd bring them down. Whoever was on stage, if a baby cried, you'd go and give it a bottle or change its pants or whatever. So the children, it was good for them also to grow up in the theatre.
It becomes a family, a very close-knit group during the show, and as long as the production is happy and people are having a good time doing the production, then the people out in the audience are having a good time, and that's the magic of it. That's really important.
The tradition of camaraderie and support has been a common thread that has tied 5 decades of members and patrons together.
I know I used to live in Toronto, and I used to think when I moved back to White Rock, and the attraction for me to move back to White Rock is the White Rock Players Club and the friends that I've met in it, you know. And when I moved back here, the first thing I did was come back to the club. And in those days in White Rock, there wasn't much happening socially, you know. And when you didn't have much money, it was certainly an easy way to meet people and have fun, and it didn't cost you anything.
I've heard a lot about you two, and I must say you're exactly as I had pictured you.
My favorite place to watch shows was there used to be a platform above the stage manager's booth on stage right here, and that's the best place to watch a show because you're taller than everybody, and you can sit up there quietly.
I was directing here when I was 20 years old, so I think I was probably the youngest director here. And I was that young guy from North Surrey who came in here, and so they allowed me to direct, and I just stayed, and been lucky to do some really good shows here.
When you first get involved in this club, you tend to do far too much. So in your first years, when you're younger, you start on one show, and then you do another, and another, and another.
The community theatre provides a venue for creativity and expression that is hard to find in the mundane of everyday living. No matter what profession or experience, everyone is welcome. If willing to learn, amateur theatre can provide many a training ground.
there isn't a job that you won't learn working inside this theater, because things got to be fixed and we don't have the money to get necessarily professionals to do it. So you learn everything from plumbing to, to nuts and bolts.
Mostly I liked just working backstage. I started out, helping with props and, working on sets, and just, it seemed to me a way that you could come up here a lot more, because there was more to do than just the acting. I wasn't all that interested in the acting.
The last 10 years I've worked on the majority of the shows in some capacity, whether it was box office, bar and concession, or working backstage, or as assistant director, or in the production itself.
Let's see, I've been a stage manager, I've been a director, I've been the designer, I've run the lights, I've run the sound. What else is there? I haven't done too much costuming. I'm not much of a sewer.
I've always enjoyed sewing, and especially designing. And I think it's kind of fun to make a costume out of something else, or take an old 2 or 3 old dressing gowns and put them together and make something new.
If I'm directing, it's a great feeling of accomplishment to be able to stand out there and watch 2 months of your time and all these other people's time, and there is a show. Here is a show. It's working. Lights are going on, and there's costumes, and that makes me feel wonderful to actually see that. We've produced something here.
There's the odd time you get a chance to, to do some showy stuff, but it's the bread and butter stuff that's the most important.
It can be exciting backstage. I mean, people out here come and see a show that's, very well put together and humming along, and backstage all hell is breaking loose and people are running around frantically. Where's, so-and-so for their entrance, and, I forgot my prop, and, so backstage is one world and out here is another, and it's fun being in the back one, I found.
We're one of the few amateur theater groups in the country that actually owns their own building. Most amateur theater companies do not own their own building. They are renters, or they've got a lease agreement with the city to have some old church for $1 a year. We own this building outright. We own the whole thing, lock, stock, and barrel, and we pay for it every step of the way. We're in a unique situation that we call our own shots. And there's a special heritage that goes with this building.
The White Rock Players Club began with a group of amateurs who had a determination to bring quality theatre to their community. In 1958, their perseverance brought them to the national spotlight. After winning the local BC drama finals, the group was invited to attend the prestigious Dominion Drama Festival in Halifax. Although many of the group's members were working and raising young families, they were determined to present their production. With the spirit that would become synonymous with the group as a whole, they campaigned and held fundraisers within the community until they had enough funds to make the journey across the country. Their entry, Playboy of the Western World, swept the top 3 awards in the revered competition. This was the first time that a small town group had won so many major awards.
This put White Rock on the map, in a way, when they won the Dominion Drama Festival in 1958. I mean, that was reported in the New York Times. That was a major event.
Well, we were there in Halifax that night when the adjudicator presented the awards, and everybody in the audience stood up and cheered, and the French Canadians, who had been rather looking down at us because we came from such a little town, and they were from the big city of Montreal, and they stood up and yelled, "Bravo, bravo!" It was a wonderful, wonderful experience.
The next morning we got a telegram from my dad saying, "You get the gin, we're bringing the cup." And that was his way of telling us they'd won.
The city of White Rock eagerly awaited the return of the winning troupe as the headlines and telegrams poured in. The White Rock Players proudly returned home with the famed Calvert Trophy for Best Production, the Martha Allen Trophy for Best Visual Production, and the Louis Jouvet Trophy for Best Directing.
Sort of brought us to the attention of not only the city of White Rock, but the surrounding areas. And so it sort of enlarged our support group, as it were.
I think our stock went up to the surrounding area a great deal too. People would come from Vancouver and New Westminster and North Vancouver and farther afield even, up the valley.
Down in the States too?
Yes, to see our plays.
Marking the 40th anniversary since their famed wins at the Dominion Drama Festival, we celebrate the spirit of the White Rock Players Club. A community tradition for more than half a century, this amateur theatre group has withstood many obstacles along the way and has risen above adversity.
Every time we entered a festival, whether we won or got some awards, or even when we were criticized badly, and that happened too, every adjudicator always commended the fact that we were such a tightly knit group. We had a family feeling among us. We all pulled together to do things for the good of the club.
We were a family. I mean, we were all sort of in the same boat. We were all broke. Probably 75% of us had these small children. It was free entertainment. We all loved it.
The camaraderie of the group that I joined was superb. They were absolutely the most marvelous group of people that I'd met. They didn't have any hang-ups, prejudices. It didn't matter where you were from, who you were. It was like an open arms thing.
We always had wonderful senses of dedication to each other and to the club. So I think that's probably one reason that we did so well.
Because it was the only theatre around for years, and it was pretty popular. And in those days, no television, so it was our entertainment, you know. And if you joined, you usually stayed with it.
If you were interested and you wanted to put yourself into it and contribute, then you were welcome.
It was a sense of camaraderie that pulled the group's founding members together in 1944 to stage their first play. The Passing of the Third Floor Back was presented to eager audiences at the local Army and Navy Club on Marine Drive, known then as Washington Avenue. Loosely formed from the remnants of a disbanded Surrey theatre group, the club emerged from modest beginnings.
The rehearsal was always in a private house, and then we had to rent a hall or something to put on the production itself.
There was just one policeman in those days, and he was, I don't think he was a paid-up member.
No, I don't think he was, no.
He used to, if we needed a gun, he would lend us a gun, and he lent us his
handcuffs,
and always came to the parties.
Oh, yes.
Late.
Yes.
So we were well in with the law. But there wasn't much crime in White Rock in those days.
Enid Saunders, one of the foremost founding members, embodied the vitality that would be associated with the theatre for years to come.
Enid was such a sweet lady, my fairy godmother. There as a child, I remember her as my fairy godmother for years. She could charm the pants off you. She was sweetness and light all the time.
We'd heard that there was a little theatre in White Rock, and I wanted to join. Guy wasn't keen because he hadn't done any theatre work, and so he promised to come along with me, and they were casting Twin Beds.
Twin Beds, yes.
Mm-hmm. He ended up getting the lead. Never been on stage before.
As a small nucleus of young amateurs began to develop, a turning point in the group's history was about to unfold. In 1947, a young man by the name of Franklin Johnson came to see one of the White Rock Players' productions. Impressed by the group's enthusiasm, he gladly accepted an invitation by the club to join their group. Little did they know that Franklin would give them the leadership they needed to succeed.
Frank Johnson was a marvelous leader and became a very fine director. And there's no doubt that he kept everything together and pushed it all together and kept the whole thing, really going.
Yeah.
And without him, there would not have been the White Rock Players. There's no doubt about that.
I think we all admired Franklin greatly. He really inspired us, as well as training us in theater technique.
Franklin, I guess, was one incredible director when he first came here. He directed virtually every show for the first 15, 20 years here. And they would be doing 6 to 8 shows a year.
We had never known anybody quite like Franklin. We thought he was really glamorous because he'd been a singing waiter in a beer joint in Seattle. And that was the beginning of his career as an actor. But you couldn't help but feel drawn towards him because of his tremendous enthusiasm.
Yes, his choreography was great, wasn't it? He can move people around.
Yeah, flowing
and back and forth, and just seemed to know exactly where to put people.
He was, as I said, the pivot, and he was like a dictator, but we didn't mind being dictated to because we knew that something wonderful was going to come out at the end.
Over the next 3 years, under the astute direction of Franklin, the Roving Thespians continued to bring live theatre to their community, relying on the support of members and patrons. Everyone became involved, from local merchants who handled ticket sales to those who donated old clothes for costumes or offered babysitting services for the children of the members. This was the community's theatre group, and wherever possible, they would contribute. Suddenly, in the spring of 1950, while rehearsing in the Liberal Hall for their next production, the building was sold. With only $75 in its coffers, the club frantically searched for new quarters. A vacant furniture store was discovered, and in less than 4 weeks, the small space was converted into a 96-seat theatre with a stage measuring 22 by 17 feet.
It was very small, it was very cramped. And I think that was one of the good things about it because it was very intimate.
Well, we'd bring in the back seats from our cars and put them right down in front of the stage. And so people would be sitting, leaning against the stage while you're acting.
And you could recognize everybody in the theatre from back there. So you'd know it was Tuesday night and you'd look to see if Mrs. So-and-so was here and you knew she'd be here.
We had one dressing room for men and women, and so you were asked to close your eyes sometimes because we were shoulder to shoulder sometimes in a large cast of players.
Next door to the theatre was a cafe, and the theatre itself, the stage, being so shallow, with some sets there was no way to cross from left to right. And if this crossing was necessary, there was a little secret door which came out into the telephone booth in the cafe. And very often there might be somebody on the telephone, but if you had to make a stage cross, you'd barge through, say, "Excuse me, please," go out the back door of the cafe, walk round through the mud if it was raining, which it usually seemed to be, come in the left-hand side of the theatre, and there was a narrow little way you could get back in there and appear on the other side of the stage. It was, it was charming.
Especially when we did Androcles and the Lion, which was put on in November, and we had a real freeze-up, and snow and ice. The temperature was well below zero. The costumes are rather scanty, being especially for the slaves, of which I was one, and had to run around behind the theater in the slave costume, which didn't amount to a great deal.
Like a little shift.
My husband, being a high school teacher, some of his students would be in the cafe there weren't very many places for students to go. They used to be in that cafe down there, and they started a rumor thing. Hey, did you see Mr. Primrose going into the back of that building down there? I think there's something going on down there. Because he went into the phone booth and he never came back.
With a permanent rented space, the Players Club continued to develop their own style and stagecraft. A monthly rent of $50 led to the increase from 3 productions a year to 6. With few other theatre groups in the area, the White Rock Players began attracting audiences from outside the region, solidifying their growing reputation.
There weren't as many amateur theatre groups in the area in those days. People knew us quite well all over the province.
Full houses and eager audiences gave the players a sense of courage and confidence. They began entering their productions in various drama festivals and started to win high praise and excellent reviews. The White Rock Players Club were making headlines everywhere they went.
We had a bit of an altercation because I worked for the bank and we won the Lower Mainland Festival. And going to the finals, to the BC finals, meant going to Nanaimo, which meant taking a day off work. And I'd only just begun to work. And the bank manager, Martin Deacon, who we fondly knew as Old Scream, wouldn't let me go. So Franklin took a delegation down to the bank of local merchants who banked with the Commerce and said, are you going to let John go to Nanaimo with us? And so he reluctantly allowed me a day off.
It was the passion for theatre and a commitment to the club that brought this small town group of players to Halifax in 1958. But once again, they would be put to the test. When they returned from their award-winning journey, the club discovered that the little theatre had begun to sink into the marshland. With the building soon condemned, the club was on a hunt once again for a new location. After scouring the city for a possible venue, a unique opportunity arose. The Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses was being sold for $19,000. The building showed promise, although major renovations and additions would raise the price tag to $35,000. With focus and persistence, the club decided to try and raise enough money to buy their own theatre. In the following weeks and months, every conceivable means of fundraising was used.
The $1,000 that we won as our award for the Playboy was the first money that we had. We had to raise all the rest.
And many, many dances we put on, big dances with a big meal. And they were usually fancy dress balls. They were a big success.
The people in the town had always been very happy to help us and very willing to help us. And we used to put on rummage sales and bake sales and things like that. And they would come and we would get rid of everything.
Down on Johnson Road, he used to sell apple pies with everybody else, stopping traffic and not letting traffic go until he bought a pie to help raise money to buy the theatre.
And he was all day baked pie after pie after pie and sold them for $1 each, and all of us were down there delivering pie, cutting apples and doing things like that, and he raised quite a bit of money doing that.
Time was running out, and the Players Club still needed a lot of money to secure their future home. The members agreed upon a radical financial solution. Most members who owned their own homes put $1,000 each towards their mortgages, taking a great risk. Most of these young, hard-working families were raising children and had a lot at stake. Yet the commitment and loyalty of this founding group seemed to be incomparable. Apart from mortgaging their own homes, the community chipped in by buying bonds, known as debentures.
My husband, in the middle, he was the president of the club at the time, and in the middle of all that, he had his first heart attack, and he sold bonds. It wasn't too serious, but he sold debentures from his hospital bed. People would come and visit him in the hospital. He was off work for about a month, and he sold as many debentures from the hospital bed as were sold by, well, a lot of people went around knocking on doors.
After months of fundraising, the White Rock Players Club made history. The group became one of the few amateur theatre groups in the country to buy their own building. The massive undertaking of constructing their new location began, and almost all the work involved volunteers. Some mixed mortar, some laid bricks, some painted walls. Everyone was welcome, and no efforts were considered too small. All energies were being focused towards completing the theatre, because, as always, the show must go on.
The first production was Tea House of the August Moon, and until the curtain opened, everybody, we were still working on on hooking up lamps and hooking up lights and soldering this and banging that. In fact, the hammers were going right until about 10 minutes before the curtain actually opened. And of course, this sort of activity helps too, because you're into the flow of the whole thing. All of us were engaged in building the theatre and learning lines, or in being stage manager, or doing the lighting, or whatever it was, all at the same time, and it was going on at the same time. And of course the play was a celebration that here it is finished, and we had marvelous audiences, and it was an excellent production, it really was.
All of those people, that generation, who would go and mortgage their homes and come up here and do such a thing, and put their life into a building and see it through until they either moved out of area or passed away. And I'll probably be here until I pass away.
Anybody who came in and lifted up a hammer or picked up a broom and started sweeping the stage, that was fine with Franklin. Then you were in.
This building has magic. And define magic how you may, nobody can spend any length of time in this building and not be affected by it.
We were both involved, right from the ground up of building this place, and it's hard to look around, and I mean, changes have been made, but it's hard to look around and see something that we didn't have a hand in building, painting, planning.
There was a nucleus of us in the club at that time, and we all took part in everything. Not only did we act in the plays, but we helped build the sets, we helped make the costumes, we held the book, we cleaned the theater. Everybody did everything. And I think that's one reason, perhaps, that we did so well in so many of our plays.
In every successful group, a guide is needed. Someone who has the tenacity of a leader, who can maintain focus and objective, someone who can inspire. Franklin Johnson embodied the character of the trailblazer, always looking ahead and never accepting defeat.
I mean, this is the building that Franklin built. It's his playhouse in a way, and we've just been fortunate enough to be allowed to play in it, which is kind of nice.
He was one of the biggest names that made this theater happen. He was the talent behind us. He directed many, many shows when they first started out, and he was one of the people that really pushed to get a theater up.
He was the artistic director, though. He was the guy who made the decisions, and you know, God rest his soul, he did the club no wrong over the years, that's for sure.
As the club's artistic director, Franklin chose and directed the majority of the club's plays for more than 17 years. He seemed to have an instinct for choosing the right plays that not only complemented the abilities of his cast, but also had a large audience appeal.
Choosing a play, too, that the cast of the members could do to perform in, and so they would appear the best. He didn't ever choose a play that we couldn't do.
Occasionally, Franklin chose plays that were being adapted by Hollywood filmmakers, knowing that they would be popular and well received. In 1960, Franklin brought Arsenic and Old Lace to the White Rock stage. Recently, actor Boris Karloff had played the lead in the screen adaptation, and Franklin would be playing the same character. With the typical determination that was the essence of Franklin, he wrote to Boris, asking the famous actor for advice on the character. Boris Karloff wrote back with admiration for the passion of this amateur group, and the play was a huge success. It was this type of shrewd planning for audience appeal that would enable the club to pay off their entire mortgage in only 6 years.
When I look back now, I am amazed at how much he learned himself and how much he taught us.
The White Rock Players, although amateurs, have always strived for professional standards, and Franklin instilled a sense of theatre discipline in all the members.
Everything gravitated to Franklin. He was, the way he used to put it, was benevolent dictator till death.
I actually broke a rib, which is a long story I won't go into. It was actually kind of funny, but it wasn't a serious injury. It was just a minor, a cracked rib during a performance of Alice in Wonderland. Went to the hospital, but that was at a matinee. We had an evening performance, and I phoned up from the hospital because I wasn't sure I was going to get out in time. They'd x-rayed me, and they were going to tape me up or whatever it was, and I phoned to the theater going, Franklin, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm at the hospital, and I've got this cracked rib, and he says, is it broken? I said, no, it's cracked. He says, well, you show up. He says, the only reason for you're not showing up to a show is that you're at a funeral, and it better be yours.
Very unselfish man. Gave a lot of himself. Didn't appreciate selfish people. And when you, as he said, when you were, I sort of cry a little bit when I think of it. When you were in these four walls, it was theater. Anything outside these walls didn't count. This was the place to be.
A real trooper. You know, and this man could be just as sick as a dog, and he would keep going, but he would give a performance.
One of the most memorable characters that Franklin played was the Dane in the traditional British pantomime. Like the music hall tradition it so successfully emulates, pantomime is a popular hybrid theatrical form. Shamelessly plundering plot and character from fairy tale and folk culture, it blends song and dance, slapstick humour and contemporary satire. Certain rules always apply. The principal boy is played by a girl, and the campy Dane character is always played by a man. Popular with people of all ages, pantomimes are traditionally performed at Christmas time.
It's a tradition with so many people. Everyone my age has grown up coming to see pantomimes. I saw my first pantomime in 1969. And that's why people keep coming back, because it's one of their memories of Christmas. Christmas isn't complete until they've seen the pantomime, or Christmas hasn't started until they've come to see the pantomime.
So I got brought in as a child in pantomimes. That's how most young children enter this building, is getting involved in the Christmas pantomime.
In 1954, the club staged its first pantomime, Babes in the Woods, at the local Semiahmoo High School. The yearly production began to create a trademark for the White Rock Players and drew in record crowds every year. From 1964 to 1976, every Boxing Day, the club brought its famed pantomime show to the Queen Elizabeth Theatre in Vancouver in support of the Vancouver Sun's charity drive. The 2,800-seat theatre was always filled to capacity.
It's a chance to get out there and pull out all the stops and be silly. I mean, you cannot find a better venue than to pantomime, to just sort of let yourself go and just go over the top.
Pantomime, you can be as large as you want to be. You can be as silly as you want to be. You can have as much fun as you want, as long as you give them lots of fun too. And I think that's the appeal. And that's why panto people tend to come back year after year after year.
The White Rock pantomime has developed sort of a kinship to, I would say, some of the Walt Disney cartoon movies, cartoon musicals. And those are dear to everybody's hearts, Snow White, Cinderella. And that kind of, that kind of feeling, the kind of innocent feeling that the good White Rock Players pantomimes have is really a part of family feeling, of family life.
I find it amazing to stand on stage and look out at an audience in the Christmas pantomime and see people who I've seen for years coming and sitting in the same seats, watching the Christmas pantomime. I find that amazing.
One of the first groups in Canada to perform the holiday production, the White Rock Players had taken the traditional British pantomime and made it uniquely their own. Charlotte Johnson, Franklin's talented wife, created a legacy of magic for generations of audiences. An accomplished journalist and writer, she wrote and adapted many of the group's trademark pantomimes, giving a local edge to the yearly production.
Charlotte was a pure pantomime, and she was a wonderful writer, and she would sit there, read her script, and then, of course, Franklin would direct it. Of course, during rehearsals, Charlotte would every now and then have her word, and they would get into this bit of a director. And Franklin used to say, never let the author into the theater when you're directing a play. Keep those authors out. And they would have a go at it. And that's the way it's going to be, Charlotte. No, it's not the way I wrote it. And they would, So Charlotte really gave us the pantomime. And Franklin, of course, understood it.
She was excellent. Her pantomimes were outstanding. And she seemed to have a real gift of being able to bring out the comic side.
And they worked. They just worked. And we filled them with local allusions, and if anything had happened during the day, some newsworthy or noteworthy event, either locally or sort of BC-ish, we'd shove it in that night into the script, and we'd, if we knew the mayor was in the audience, of course, he'd be mentioned.
One of the most unique elements of the White Rock pantomime was the music, a particular song rewritten by Charlotte each year.
Our Canucks got brand new shirts to improve their winning spurts. In the end, it only got the messier and messier. Yes.
But it isn't going to happen.
Want to bet? White Rock Council did a turnaround on anti-smoking rule. Now there's smoking and not smoking in the bathrooms in the schools. The wonderful year we fell in love.
You don't have to read the newspaper. You just read the lyrics of Wonderful Year We Fell in Love for the last 40-odd years, and you've got the news.
When she wrote The Year We Fell in Love, every year, people would come to the pantomime to say, oh yes, I must come to the pantomime to hear The Year We Fell in Love. And it was, she had this knack for fitting words into a space that nobody else would do.
Because people will listen for it, they wait for it, you can hear them in the audience. Oh yeah. And when I play it in the overture, I notice, oh yeah, they're singing along with me,
The Wonderful Year We Fell in Love has become a much-loved tune that summarizes the news of the year and leaves audiences humming long after the show. Norman Long, one of the club's musical directors for over 30 years, has been enchanting audiences of all ages with his magical and inventive musical scores.
Sometimes when we have a song in the pantomime which is audience participation, we get a great response. You know, the kids come up on stage and sing along, and we vie one side with the other side, and, oh, this side's better than yours, no, your side's better than, you know, the usual.
Music is an incredibly important element to theatre, particularly to the pantomime. It has the ability to set the stage for any emotion or scene, creating the atmosphere that is so vital to good theatre.
Well, I think it's very good because it is a carrier. It helps it move along, I believe, the musical aspect of it. And it can add tuneful ditties that they can sing along to or remember when they leave and that sort of thing, you know.
Norman has been writing original music for the theatre for many years, and his contributions are an important part of the Players Club's history.
I find I have a reason for writing it. The actual situation of the plot at the time, and or the character, what the character happens to be, what their function is, you know, dame or woodman or whatever, you know.
The role of the dame in the yearly pantomime is one of the trademarks of this talented group. Colourful, dazzling and larger than life, the actors who have played this lead role over the years have left behind many memorable performances.
Playing the dame, it's a clown costume. You know, it's bright red cheeks and bright red lips and big blue eyes. It's clown, you know. It's big and broad. It's magic. Pantomime.
For myself, it's just a feeling of freedom. You can get up there. When I did the dame, I had my lipstick on and my wig and my breasts, which I ran out one night and forgot to put on. That went over well. John, you forgot your, oh, right. I'm sorry.
For me, it was the opportunity to be goofy, to be actually go in and be in front of people and be goofy, and to be with a lot of people and have a lot of fun. That was
You don't need to do a pantomime to be goofy. You just need to wake up in the morning.
Need to sit in an interview with you. It makes me goofy.
All the principals in pantomimes have actually literally stopped the show and gone out in the audience and dragged somebody up on stage and embarrassed them. And I think a lot of it is the repeat people coming back because they know that they're not safe. They could get dragged up on stage. They could be insulted by the cast and crew. And I think they like it because it's a real form of escapism because it's so silly.
As good a TV as you can have, and the biggest screen as you can have. You bring a little kid in here with all the bright lights and the action, and you can see them from the stage. You know, and it makes that kind of an impression.
The first show I ever stepped on stage for was a Christmas pantomime. We were doing Robinson Crusoe. And a lady in the show who was working in costumes needed someone to wear the gorilla suit. And I said, well, I don't want to go on stage. And she said, well, no one will ever know it's you. And so I thought, well, if no one's going to know it's me, I can put on that gorilla suit and go out there and make a fool of myself. And that's what I did.
It's just so silly. It's just fun. Nobody expects it to be serious. Nobody expects to see great acting. They love to see silly-looking people in silly-looking costumes just having a truly wonderful time.
It's fun, I think, for the adults to sit in the audience and watch these little kids. I mean, so like I said, Franklin Johnson, when I was 5, was the most beautiful thing on earth. So, you know, you get some people in kind of an old rug that's supposed to be a horse costume or something like that. It works for the 5-year-olds and it works for me.
With its vibrant sets and large cast, the annual production brings in many repeat supporters on both sides of the stage. A showpiece production, the Panto allows performers and crew the opportunity to go over the top.
What are you standing at? Well, I've just noticed something. While I was looking at these trees, I've noticed that that these good people have been sitting here doing nothing but laughing and having a good time while we've been up here working up a good sweat.
Oh, prithee, we finally see eye to eye on something.
pantomime is one of the places where you get to do the flashy things, whether it's in set design or in lighting.
Las Vegas!
Las Vegas, Las Vegas, here in the town that doesn't sleep. You roll the dice, you play for keeps. The brightest lights you've ever seen. The drinks are free, the food is cheap. $2 steaks, Las Vegas, Las Vegas.
And I remember pantomimes where you'd have 25 people willing to stand around backstage to move scenery. And, you know, it would take 3 of them, but we'd have 25 people who'd be here every night willing to do that.
3 times as many people get involved in the pantomime. So you have a tendency to draw people in, and also different age groups. Whereas a lot of normal plays, you know, where a lot of shows, there might be one 10-year-old boy in a play, but usually it's, you know, 33 to 60, right? So it's 33-year-old people to 60-year-old people. Well, the real trick to building a theater is to have people from 6 to 60 in the production, right? And the pantomime does that. It draws younger people into the building.
And it's a great place, I think, for all ages, but especially for young people. I mean, people worry about the kids hanging around on the street corners and getting into gangs and stuff. Well, if you want to join a gang, this is the gang to join.
There's something about working with a group of people so intensely for a long period of time, especially when you're all trying to be someone else. And of course, anybody that really cares about it, being professional or amateur, you're not acting that you're somebody else. You're trying to be someone else.
So many people that I've known here for more than half my life, and I'll probably know them for the rest of my life. And we've got a lot of history here, and we care about this building. We care about performing.
After years of full houses, time moved on and play after play was staged. The building began to show its age, and after constant patching, the need came in the late 1980s to make major renovations. At this time, various attempts were made by groups within the community to fundraise enough money to tear down the present building and construct a modern arts facility that would house various arts groups under one roof. With conflicting visions on the creative and financial feasibility of the project, the club refocused its attention to the existing structure. As had been done by the original founding members in 1960, the club rolled up its sleeves and began the difficult task of renovating the theatre from the ground up.
I think that the most important thing is that this is a place that people created, volunteered to create. People said, let's do it. Let's build this thing, and they built it. Let's add a lobby. They added a lobby. Let's add a shop out the back. They added the shop out the back. Let's bring it back from the ashes and renovate it. And they did that. And that's what it's always been about, it's what the people want to make of it.
Love of theater. Chance to get up on the stage, chance to work backstage.
Yeah, I think if you spend a few years in this theatre, and I don't mean just the building, that you become part of it and you want to come back.
And getting up on stage and looking out again, all the ghosts come back. All the things that happen. Even being here now, I can relate to the plays that I was in here, and the audience reaction and the cast. It's there. It's in the building.
I hope they take this place apart carefully if they ever do, because behind the drywall there's names and dates and slogans written from past shows for over the years. People were always writing something in the wall, and every show you did, you'd write your name and the date, and so these walls are full of history.
A history that has evolved from the passion and ingenuity of club members. With very little resources, this community theatre has always succeeded in entertaining audiences and bringing the charm of the theatre to their local stage.
That's the time we put on Auntie Mame, and we were still running at 12 o'clock at night, and the curtain fell down, and we were still only about 2/3 of the way through the play And Franklin was saying, I think perhaps we better stop the play now and put it on, the rest of it on tomorrow night. And it got the worst reviews of any that we had ever done. In fact, the Vancouver Sun said, the best thing the White Rock Theatre can do with Auntie Mame is close it. Well, we ran for a month to full houses because people wanted to come see what this terrible play was about.
The night we were doing a pantomime, and it was raining so badly, half of the audience didn't show up and the roof was leaking, so we'd taped garbage bags up, and just at the finale, the garbage bags burst and all the water came tumbling down on the people in the front row. That wasn't planned. And, little things like that. The unexpected happens all the time.
I've been here till 6 in the morning at times when opening night's the next day, and you have to be careful you don't touch certain walls during the performance because they're still wet.
That, to me, is the most important moment in the show, is that moment just before. And then the curtain opens, and it's like a step into another reality. There's a moment where it goes from being here in the theater, and then everyone quiets down, and the curtains open, and you're somewhere else. And it's that suspension of disbelief, and the fact that these people can come here and make something happen that doesn't happen. Like, they can make magic, and I think that's what it is. That's what it is for me. If there's a reason why I come here, it's for that.
I think it was a lot of it was that we all felt the same way about the theater and being in the theater, and it was a hobby for us. It was our life.
White Rock is a very small city, really, where everyone knows one another, and people have been supportive of this theatre for years and years. That they came in spite of bad reviews, in spite of anything.
The truth is people that come to see theater are giving as much as any one of the actors that shows up that evening to put on the show, because they showed up. They showed up and they came to see a show. And they came to see an amateur production too, so which means they have even more trust in you.
I'd like to see the people come in here and realize this is open to the community. This is community theater. It's not some private organization, and it needs people to be more involved.
Ask not what the theater can do, ask what you can do for the theater.
Yeah, this is true. I mean,
because the theater does so much for you. At least it did for us.
My job is what paid my bills. Coming up here was what fulfilled me.
We need people. And if you want to help someone, if you're a carpenter, if you're a plumber, if you're a carpet layer, if you're a tile setter, if you're a drink pourer, if you make good coffee, if you can spread paint, if you can talk well, if you can tell a good story, if you're a good, there's so many things that can be done in this building. The building needs everything.
There's always been times in this club where you go through a period of not having enough people or finding it hard to find people to fill all the positions and get the job done. But somehow you always come through, and then suddenly, a year or two down the road, you're beating people off with a stick. So I think it's a big cycle, and I think it'll keep on going.
I found that it was very quick and easy to become a member and part of this group.
And we do take all types of people in this club, as you can see. we're pretty
resilient.
Yeah, we're pretty flexible. We're not too picky.
We're just going to keep getting bigger and better. We're doing the best shows we can. We have a good executive that works very hard for the club. We're out in the community doing what we can to make ourselves known, to bring in some new audiences. And we just want to keep expanding as much as we can. We belong to the Theatre Coalition and Theatre BC, so we are judged on our merits. We have people coming to see our shows with the possibility of us winning some awards and going to bigger festivals. So there's always that opportunity as well for the club.
It's a pretty special place because it's where it all happens. It's where it's all happened. If the walls could talk.
It's a repertoire of creaks and groans and settling noises even after all this time. It's quite a symphony here at night, especially on a cold night. I just love it. May it go on forever.
just being in here is exciting. I get a little emotional sometimes. But I wouldn't give it up for anything. Wonderful place to be.
So I keep hoping somebody in the club will win $1 million so they can pay off the mortgage. And I'm hoping it's me, so then I can move to Mexico after that.
After more than 40 years since this small town group swept the top awards at the renowned Dominion Drama Festival, the legacy of the White Rock Players Club's founding members endures. Passion, commitment, and above all, a love of theatre are values held dear to all club members and patrons.
There's something so ethereal and so magical about here. It just makes me want to keep coming back, and even if it's just working on wiring or sweeping the stage or helping paint a set or just being here.
You know, I'm a firm believer that when you leave the theater, you got to leave here with something more than just a folder program and a torn ticket. And hopefully you've given them some kind of memory that they'll take with them, and, you know, excited them somehow. And that's what theater's all about, and this theater does that.
A little bit of magic, a lot of magic, lots of sparkle dust.
Don't forget about me.
How pure Nellie is, and how proud I am that I kept myself